Romeo and Juliet. Once upon a time, in a city called Verona, there were two families who were always fighting. These families were called the Montagues and the Capulets. They did not like each other at all, and no one could remember why. Everyone in Verona knew about their feud, and people tried to stay out of their way. In the Montague family, there was a young man named Romeo. He was kind, friendly, and loved to laugh. But sometimes, he felt a little sad. He wanted to find someone special, someone he could love with all his heart. Romeo didn't know that, very soon, his wish would come true. In the Capulet family, there was a girl named Juliet. Juliet was sweet and smart, and she loved to play with her friends. She dreamed about finding her true love one day, even though she was young. Juliet had no idea that her life was about to change forever. One day, the Capulets decided to throw a grand party. It was a big event, and everyone was invited, everyone except the Montagues, of course. But Romeo, curious and eager for an adventure, decided to sneak into the party with his friends. They wore masks so no one would recognize them. When Romeo entered the party, he looked around at the decorations and the happy faces. That's when he saw her. Juliet. She was dancing, smiling, and laughing with her friends. Romeo thought she was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. His heart started beating fast. He didn't know she was a Capulet. He just knew he wanted to talk to her. Romeo walked up to Juliet and bowed. "Hello," he said, smiling. Juliet looked at him and felt her cheeks turn pink. She smiled back and said, "Hello." They started talking and laughing, forgetting about everyone else around them. They danced together, and it felt like they were the only two people at the party. For the first time, Romeo and Juliet felt something special in their hearts. They didn't know each other's names yet, but it didn't matter. They had found true love. But then, Romeo found out that Juliet was a Capulet, and Juliet learned that Romeo was a Montague. They were shocked. Their families were supposed to be enemies. But they couldn't forget each other. They knew that what they felt was real, and they couldn't just walk away. That night, after the party, Romeo couldn't sleep. He wanted to see Juliet again, so he quietly went to her garden and called out her name. "Juliet," he whispered. Juliet heard him and looked down from her balcony. She was so happy to see Romeo. She whispered back, "Oh, Romeo, why do you have to be a Montague?" They knew it was risky to see each other, but their love was strong. They promised to meet in secret and find a way to be together, even if their families would never approve. For a few days, Romeo and Juliet met in secret, sharing their hopes and dreams. They laughed together and promised to love each other no matter what. They even decided to get married, hoping that their love might help end the feud between their families. They found a kind priest named Friar Lawrence, who agreed to marry them in secret. He hoped that their love could bring peace to Verona. Romeo and Juliet were so happy to be together, and for a little while, it seemed like nothing could go wrong. But one day, Romeo's friend Mercutio got into a fight with Juliet's cousin, Tybalt. Romeo tried to stop the fight, but it was too late. Mercutio was hurt, and in his anger, Romeo fought back and accidentally hurt Tybalt. Romeo was sad and sorry, but he knew that he had broken the law. The Prince of Verona decided that Romeo had to leave the city. Romeo was heartbroken. He didn't want to leave Juliet. They met one last time and promised to find a way to be together. Juliet was sad, but she believed in their love. She asked Friar Lawrence for help, and he came up with a plan. He gave Juliet a special potion that would make her look like she was asleep, so everyone would think she was gone. But after a little while, she would wake up, and Romeo would come to take her away. Juliet took the potion and lay down in her room. Her family thought she was gone and were very sad. They didn't know that Juliet was just sleeping. But the message to Romeo about the plan didn't reach him in time. Romeo heard that Juliet was gone, and he felt like his heart was broken. He rushed back to Verona, wanting to see her one last time. When Romeo arrived and saw Juliet lying there, he thought the plan had failed. In his sadness, he stayed by her side, holding her hand and wishing he could be with her forever. Just then, Juliet began to wake up. She looked at Romeo, and her heart filled with happiness. They hugged each other, so glad to be together again. The sound of their joy echoed through the room, bringing their families to the door. Their families gasped when they saw Romeo and Juliet together. They could see that their children loved each other deeply. They realized that their fighting had only caused sadness and hurt. Romeo and Juliet's love had touched their hearts, and from that day on, the Montagues and Capulets decided to make peace. They wanted their children to be happy, and they knew that love was more powerful than any feud. Romeo and Juliet finally lived happily ever after, with both families by their side. And in Verona, people told their story to remind everyone that love could bring peace, even to the most stubborn of enemies.